Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On Time Sports Talk. Huge show today. First ever guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Fry. You can see on your screen there. Say hello, Jason.
What's up, everybody? Pumped to do this episode. Let's bring the energy. Let's bring some coaching.
Woo!
There we
Energy.
go.
All right. So, Jason, you are a part of this health and leadership movement that we talked last year in Colorado a little bit about. You piqued my interest, and I'm excited to learn a little more in depth. I know the original over there, my counterpart, is as well. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Healthy Coach is, and kind of lead that into productive, positive coaching and double standards and things you're seeing with that. So, why don't you go ahead and lead us into that and explain to the folks what that's all about?
Sure, thank you. Healthy coach is just a branch. So we've got this big tree, and one of the branches is healthy leader. One of the branches is a healthy sales leader. One of the branches is going to be the healthy mom. One of the healthy dad. So we're going to have all these different branches, but we didn't have one for the healthy coach. And so it was something that we ended up deciding promote to push, because if anybody is tasked with and might want to think about. So what do? A healthy coach focuses on breath work, reading, reflection, and exercise. And so if we do those four things as a coach, man, we are going to see our energy. We're going to see the pounds drop off a little bit. We're going to see our ability to connect, not just the 9 to 5, but the focus of the 5 to 9. So who I am as a coach when I come home, that's a really important thing for us. So hands down, how do I improve this as my health so that it goes into what I'm doing for 9 to 5, and then what I do as a dad, as a husband, as a spouse, as somebody who impacts a family.
Yeah, I love that last part right there. And Pops, you can jump in anytime. But I think a lot of folks, or a lot of, especially young coaches, and I know I struggled with this when I first got into coaching, is how to leave that frustration or the anger or whatever you're dealing with your team. Maybe you're not getting the results you want, or you're just having a really bad year, um, or they're just not getting it. I think it's hard to separate that from the house and indirectly also leave the house away from the gym,
Mm.
because you don't want coaches bringing their frustrations from home and taking it out on their players as well.
Yeah, I mean, my background a lot has been in leadership coaching, whether it's a business world or whatever. But, the thing we see a lot of the kids these days need really good mentorship, and they need help with relationship building because, I'm actually doing a conference this week where I'm talking about the coming storm. And to me, what it is because we live, well, I should say they live in such a superficial world now that it's all about filters and when they take pictures of being perfect and then being that kid that is known, everybody thinks they're going to be the next star or whatever on, and they'll do anything to do that, to a certain extent. So to me, it becomes increasingly hard for teachers, coaches, and parents to be able to find balance when they're dealing with so much of that stuff. And it's just sometimes it's just being able to bring them back to reality and maintain your own reality. And I always saw it's learning how to really be empathetic. In other words, understand what they're going through, but not get all up into what they're going through and wear yourself out with that.
And
So I think that's really, really good stuff.
Yep.
so you're hosting this conference this weekend. Who's one of your guest speakers this week?
Myself, No, Casey is actually, but yeah, and it's nurturing mental health in adolescence because it's all around. Obviously, I run a mental health organization here in Texas, so we see it, and these kids feel overwhelmed for things. We're just like, really, that you're over, really. But the thing is when you live in a superficial world, when things get real, it if they don't have someone around them to help guide them through that, then it doesn't matter um, what it is. Then they're just going to it's going to affect, just like you were talking about, it's going to affect on the if they play sports or in the classroom, at home, or whatever. It's going to affect all aspects of their life. And I think that's one of the things the coaches, when you talk about healthy, they can get wrapped up into it too. As a coach, they get all into the numbers, and I want to win, and I want to do this stuff, and then they neglect
Mhm.
themselves. And that's one of the things that I think is very important. You can't give 100% of yourself if you are not 100%.
Yeah, yeah. You
And
guys
that's
hit it that on the head, and I want to bring up three things really quick. My man, and these things will help coaches. So anyone listening, these things are going to help. Number one, my man Ben Newman used to tell me every time you walk into a room, it requires different energy. It doesn't matter. So you go into a classroom, that classroom requires and is demanding that a different energy be brought to you than what it was when you were in the teacher's lounge, than what it was when you were in the gym. And so it's understanding that every time you get into this frame, this door frame, that you have a pause and you can reframe what is demanded of me, what is required, what do I need to do in order to do that, and just take that quick pause. So that power of the pause every time you're at a new frame allows you to reframe. The second thing that really helps a ton, most people are aware of the breathing and meditation. Like, you're seeing operators come in and transition in civilian life right now, and they find out the power of meditation and breath work, and they're like, I could have been a much better operator back in the day. And so that would have made me amazing. And so the whole goal here is now, okay, well, what could I do? Well, from a breathwork standpoint, instead of going just Navy SEAL style breathing, we're going to focus on a 4-2-4-2. So instead of box breathing where it's 4-4-4, a lot of people can't hold for 4. So our goal here is going to be that we go 4-second inhale, and then a 2-second pause, and then a 4-second exhale, and a 2-second pause, and just kind of keep repeating that for our healthy coaches get set up for 7 minutes. So it's one of those goals of how could I get 7 minutes? Well, maybe I don't have 7 minutes right away. I can get 3.5 now. I can get 3.5 later, maybe before I come home.
Mhm.
So 4-2-4-2. The third,
well, I know whoever's cat that was needs to exercise breathing, by the
yeah,
way.
she doesn't do that. She gets excited.
Anyways, go ahead.
She heard the energy, so she's like, I
Oh,
want to join in.
yeah. What's number three?
No,
What
number
hit us with
three
number
is
three?
rhythm. You hit it on the
Mm.
head, Pop. That it's not balance. It can't be balanced. So there's no such thing. Because if I go to work for 8 and then I do practice for 2, now I drove to practice. I drove back home. So there's actually no such thing as a balance from work and life. It doesn't exist. But how can I create the best rhythm possible? And once again, it'll come back to understanding the whole reframe and the breath work and my exercise. But if I can do those things, then I can understand, okay, well, I can create this nice heartbeat rhythm of going, of coming to work, elevating here, coming back down, and then bringing it up a little bit for my kids. So understanding that there's no such thing of balance to begin with, I think helps a lot of coaches start now. Because like you said, Case, dude, we didn't know when we were coaches. When we were young, it's like, yo, grind, 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 grind.
Yeah.
And what did that do? That burnt me out. And then I don't have the energy for the kids who I love. Like, that's the whole reason I was doing it. But now we have this capability of being able to go, okay, whoa. I can create this rhythm. How do I do this? It doesn't exist. I got to talk to my staff. I got to tell them when I'm not bringing it. I got to check in with people and just focus on me, because if I bring my best me, my team brings our best.
And I think that's really important to when you talk about the different energy levels for different time frames. And I got a little story that reminded me of this. So my first 5 years of coaching was up in Ohio at New Albany High School. And I was used to being that young coach, go, go, go. You and me are basketball coaches. We know the grind of the season. You know how intense it's got to be, 2 games a week minimum. Then you go in the playoffs. Well, my first time coaching a sport that wasn't basketball on the high school level was at Johnstown High School, and I was coaching track. And I'm coaching long distance girls events, so 800 and above. And I'm in this basketball mode. Like, we got to go, like, sprint the corners, jog the straightaways, let's go. And we're doing that for 3 miles. Like, I have this completely wrong energy for track. And the girls just jog the entire time around the track, like, completely ignore the workout. And so then we talk about it, and they talk to me and they go, Coach, this is what we did yesterday. This is where our bodies are at, and we hashed it out. And I really understood it's a different energy I had needed to bring to track versus the intense environment of basketball. And so when you apply that, as you mentioned, to the classroom, when you come home, in a meeting, a bunch of different places, that energy piece is, so vital when it comes to progressing and dealing things in a tactful way with certain people in different age groups. So I think that is a heck of a point on your different energies for different frames.
Yeah, it's a great mentality to think about, when you're having conversations with people as well. Understanding not just the room you're in, not just the energy that's required of you, but kind of feel them out to see what do you think, like what's their energy for you as well. So how do
Hmm.
they view this energy of coming towards you? What is that relationship piece? Coach, in case you easily could have developed relationships with the kids and that would have changed everything. All these coaches will go in and go, yo, it's my way, it's the highway. This is how we're doing it no matter what. And then there's no feedback from the kids. Well, how the hell do you get buy-in? How the hell are you going to last throughout the entire time frame of this if this relationship piece isn't built up? And so if you gather that feedback and, hey, coach, it's looking like after these days, this is what our bodies feel like, so we can now change it, adapt it, be flexible, and then be able to move forward. That's where the coaches hopefully can gain valuable things from our program, is because they get taught that, they get reminded that, they get different avenues to be able to be flexible so that they can thrive in those times of coaching.
Yeah, I think what you said is very important. It's the same when these kids move into the work world, which is really what you're preparing them for, to go to college and to move into society and be do well in their life. And I think that relationship part that you're talking about, I always go back to the superficial part of it. What they think are relationships isn't necessarily not necessarily a healthy relationship, but it's also not a real relationship when it comes to, because you look at the ones who may not have that, that family structure at home, that so mom and dad or whatever it might be, that there's some strain on that, and then a lot of them turn to their device because that's the easiest thing to do. And unfortunately, as I talk about the last few years of the pandemic, they had to be pushed toward the device even more. And so when you talk about taking time to get to know a person enough to understand where they're coming from, it's like me being the executive director, CEO for my organization. I have over 90 employees and contractors that work for me, and something I learned very early on, was that whole energy thing that you're talking about. If I have a bad day, I have to keep that from happening when I walk into the office, because if I bring my bad day in, because I'm in a leadership position, just like a coach or a teacher, because they're looking to you to be that example. If you set that example, man, I had a flat tire, my wife is driving me crazy, all that stuff. If you come in with that attitude, then it gets put on everybody else.
Mhm.
And I think with young folks, with them being in such a superficial world of it got to have it now or whatever, they will turn you off. They will just be like, I don't even want to listen to them because they're negative. I don't want that.
Right.
And so I think it's extremely important to understand that self-care, because and just like you said, measuring, understanding, what I call it's reading the room. When you go in, you got to kind of read the room, because it's like you said, if you come in with it's my way or the highway, you're going to lose 50% of the people immediately. You'll probably lose a whole lot more than that, but but it's more about, let's let's get this going, let's make it work, let's find a way that we can all accomplish the same thing. you
Yeah,
know
I think so. Your three steps that you talked to, and I want to transition into your double standards piece, because when we were texting back and forth, I needed you to clarify that a little bit, and I really like where you're going with it. But the thing I want to really express is right now we have an epidemic of coaches leaving the profession, and a lot of it is cited with burnout, time commitment, family balance, expectations on the teaching and coaching side. Here in Texas, some states you don't have to teach to coach, but in Texas you do. Yeah, whatever. Missouri up there. But in Texas, there's a mass exodus, especially of young coaches who love the game or love their particular sport. They love seeing those light bulb moments, helping kids be successful. I know that's why I fell in love with coaching when I was 17 years old, was when I helped a middle school girls basketball camp and the light bulb went off for this one little girl. And it was awesome. And those moments are the ones I hang on to, and you see it in the classroom. But those three things for you to practice, of understanding your energy, what you're bringing, taking time for yourself and breathing and self-care, and then finding a rhythm, just like the bobsled team in Jamaica did. So, feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme, get on up. It's bobsled time. Thank you. Yeah. Well, some of the folks,
you just aged yourself, my friend. Just
well,
aged yourself.
there's still not more gray in my beard than there is in your goatee. So Jason, let's go into the double standard piece. Like, what were you really talking about with double standards when it comes to coaches?
Yeah. Oh man, this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about that I lose the most people on when it comes to it
That's probably because they're guilty.
because they're guilty, dude.
Yeah.
When you go to church and the reverend says what he says, the pastor speaks, and you feel like it's straight to you. He spoke to everybody in the room and just brought up all these different things that each person in the room actually. Oh, I'm addicted to porn. Oh, I have alcohol problem. Oh, I'm angry. Oh, well, every single person in the room feels like he talked to them, right? So they feel convicted. My goal is for a coach to feel convicted, to recognize that, hey, you know what? I'm saying one thing, I'm living one thing, and yet I'm demanding from my 16-year olds that they have to execute at the highest level or in a certain manner that I don't have to. So you mean to tell me that my kid is not allowed to talk to the referee in a certain manner, but I am? That might
Ooh.
be the biggest load of crap that there is. I understand protecting an athlete, and I will forever protect my athletes, but I will never ream an official and then say to my kid that they can't ream an official. It's a double standard that should not exist, and I hate using absolutes, but it shouldn't exist. When we do this off the court, when we go, hey kids, let's say we're an AAU coach. Hey kids, we've got an 8 a.m. game tomorrow on court 72, and nobody's going to be watching, but you better bring your A game. Meanwhile, I'm going to go get drunk with all the parents. I'm going to get drunk with the parents, and then I'm going to show up and then just be super pissed at a bunch of 12-year-olds because they didn't bring their best at an 8 o'clock game on a sport court, and yet I'm still hungover. I still have glossy eyes. There's a double standard that shouldn't exist. And so
I
I
like
want people to feel convicted. Rick Majerus used to get pissed at his guys for not running a certain speed. Rick Majerus was a legend, and I completely respect him. But nowadays you can't make the run that you and tell your kids, hey, you're a slow ass. Hey, you're this, that, you're whatever it is. I can't believe you can't do that. I saw a coach get really pissed at their kid for making a layup. I said, could you make a layup if I was guarding you? Yeah, of course, it should be easy. Okay, Joel Embiid averages 47%, and he's the best in the NBA at finishing against contact, and he's finishing at 47%. Your kids should do better than that.
So my question is, did y'all lace them up and did you lock them down?
No, coach didn't.
Oh,
Because
he
once
backed
again,
out.
there was a double standard where he didn't live to that level.
So I'll tell you
Mhm.
this. So the one that I know basketball coaches, if they're listening to this, the one that you were like, hey, this is talking to you, was the referee line.
Yeah.
And so especially when I was a younger coach, I was hard on the refs. I got onto him all the time, and my pops right here, he's at almost every one of my games. He'll probably tell you over the last 10 years, he's probably seen me calm down on the sidelines because there's a much different way, because they are human beings. They're doing a hard job. They're not going to get everyone right. And there's a certain way you talk to them. And if you're just yelling and screaming, you're no better than the fan in the stands or the annoying parent that you don't like in the stands.
100%.
And then if you're not being animated and screaming at the top of your lungs, a lot of times players and parents will feel like you're not defending their kid.
Yeah.
And so there's a balancing act there. And, ultimately, there's a certain way you go about it to ultimately get the call you really want in the fourth quarter. Because that call in the first quarter, really, there's so much game to play. As a coach, you should understand, why am I going to blow my gasket with a referee right now and then get pissed at my kids when they get a technical blowing a gasket at the referee?
100%.
So
Well, think about this too. Let me give another example from a basketball standpoint. I have been telling Casey to work on his left hand nonstop. And I'm yelling when he uses his right hand on the left side, and I go ape because he didn't do it. How could you not do that, in practice? Use your left hand, Casey. But then in the game, Casey uses his left hand and he blows the layup.
And then you
And
get pissed.
I go irate. Well,
because he didn't make the layup.
I just lost all credibility.
Yeah, but if he makes it with the right hand, what he's comfortable with, you don't say a word to him because you got the 2 points and you're on to the next play. You're not focused on the negative.
Of course not. Of course.
So there's a double standard right there.
There's always a double standard there. And so I don't want to say always. There is a double standard with that. And so the goal here is to understand, look, my job as a coach is to keep my credibility, is to work daily on my credibility. So when I say something, it has impact. When I say, hey, guys, I don't know what to run. What do you guys think? Getting their feedback, I'm able to actually receive it. You think if I reamed the kid for not using his left hand or for blowing the layup, that the next time out I say, hey, Casey, what do you want to run? What do you think Casey's going to run? I don't know. Run play two. Play two hasn't worked all season. But he's going to say play two because he doesn't care anymore. He's lost it. And
yeah,
that's what we've got.
So,
that's where it is. That's where that double standard now, we want to rid ourselves from that double standards and actually live it in multiple facets of life.
I think an important part that you just talked about, not necessarily double standards, but you mentioned asking the players. I think a big part of any team, and I think this is going to kind of segue into your team improvement part that I know we talked about, is giving ownership to the players. Mm-hmm. So not being Mr. Know-it-all, I have all the answers guy. Because there's been multiple times on the sideline, and I'm sure, Dad, you've had multiple times in the business world that you lay it out there and the kid or the employee sits there and says, let's run this or let's do this. And you're like, you know what, we're going to give it a shot to see if it's going to be successful. Or maybe you ask an assistant coach or one of your managers or whatever it is, as far as in the business world. And so giving that ownership piece and giving them the feeling that they are in this process with you adds to your.
Topic,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. So, yeah, especially in the business world, because when you talk about change and change management, and that's where my perspective comes from, is that you have to get buy-in and change, and everybody reacts differently to change. So, say you're coming in as a new coach and wanting to do something different, then and I use a model called the ADKAR model, which has to do with awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. But the most important two are the first thing. First off, there's awareness. Why do we need to change? Now, in the sports world, it could be, okay, we kind of sucked last year. We need to change some things to make it better. But then the most important part is getting that desire to want to be a part of the change. And that is why it's important to get that feedback. One of the things when I first took over this mental health organization, I ran an employee survey because I wanted to hear what their thoughts were on things, because they're in the trenches. But it's also, to what you just said a while ago, it's ownership. If they feel like they're part of that change, then they take some ownership in it, and then it makes your job easier to a certain extent, because now they feel responsible. I've been the one helping. Okay, we need to do this better. Okay, you guys, we need to get this better. Let's work on it. And so those first two parts, when you're trying to change things for the better, it's extremely important to give feedback and listen to them. Because a lot of people would say, well, you don't want your players running your team. That's not what it's about. It's learning what their strengths are, letting them learn what they need to improve on, and being able to see it through their own eyes. You can see it. It's easy for you to see, you keep doing that. I keep telling you not to do it, but I need you to see what you need to change, because until they see that they need to change, you're just preaching to a brick wall,
Yeah,
really.
and I think what you're saying there, and I think y'all agree with this statement, is pretty much, you know, when you give them that ownership piece, it also helps develop the player or the manager into their role and prepare them to grow into a bigger role, whether that's a team leader, whether that's from an employee to an assistant manager to a manager, letting them explore ideas and options that give them confidence. So I'll give you an example just in the coaching world. So my first year at Lake Creek, I was the first assistant. Coach Spencer's the head coach. We're in a big time game. He looks at me and goes, who do we run the play to? Because they're like double and triple teaming our star guy. And I go, run it to Zach. And he looked at me like, he's going to hit a three? And I go, you're damn right he's going to hit it. You want to know why? Because he's not afraid. And I guarantee you, if you give this play to him, his eyes are going to light up and he's going to hit the damn shot. And he's like, all right, I'm going with you, coach. And we execute wide open in the corner. Bang, Hazelwood hits the three. We go up. We end up winning the game. But I mean, as soon as that ball goes in the net, coach turns around, gives me like the hardest high five he ever gave me, other than in our playoffs runs. And, it made me feel validated as the assistant coach and that I own part of the program and part of its success and that I am doing something right. So when you give that ownership piece, you help develop the roles, and those little things help prepare me ultimately to become a head coach. And then, when I left that role, to become a better assistant coach back at a big school. So I think that's hugely important. So with that development team piece, Jason, what are your kind of your big ideas or your big keys to team improvement as a whole?
Well, glad that we're segueing and that we're moving this way because this is perfect. Let's think about this. A great plan that's not executed as because it's the leaders, right? So a great plan not executed is worth little, right? But a poor plan executed to the highest level is going to see the results. That's what giving ownership to your team.
Hold up. Isn't that George S. Patton? I do believe.
Probably.
I think that's a quote from General Patton. Anyways, continue. History buff here.
That's okay.
It hit myself. Anyways, go ahead.
I probably butchered it anyways, but that's one of those things that's going to come back to the ownership piece, right? So if I have a plan and I think that it's the greatest thing, like I've done it before. Hey, here's your player improvement plan. I wrote it up. I spent all this time doing it. Go execute it. The kid has no say. He's going to come back at the end of summer and back in the fall, having not worked on any part of the plan because what? He had no say in it. He had no reason to give himself into this. And the same thing with an assistant. So when I look at it as we're looking at team improvement, imagine if I'm the head honcho, okay? Jocko talks about this often about being able to detach. Well, if you're so into the details, you can't detach, which means you can't help others in other areas because you're only on this vision. I've got my blinders on and I can only see what's in front of me. Well, that's what I need my team to do. I need to be the stagecoach driver that sees that and can direct my horses, my Chip and Dales on the path that's set before them, right? So our goal here is to just go, okay, what from a leadership standpoint, what can I get them to create? Because I need to trust them, right? I need to, as a leader, I need to trust my team. My team does not need to trust me yet. So that's how I grow my trust is by giving them my trust. And then that's how we develop together. So what I would do if I'm a leader, I'm going to say, okay, well, I need to know how much time do I have before mission success, before objective secured would happen, right? So how long do I have? Well, let's say I'm a head coach. So that means I've got 4 months for the summer. I'm going to give my top 3 assistants, I'm going to let them choose something they want to master. And I will give them all the connections that I have that are based on that area. You want ball screen? I'll give you Bill Self's number. I'll help you get ball screen action so that you can improve that. And then guess what happens after your 4 months? You've become almost a master at it because that's all you've studied. You know exactly of what to teach my kids in the fall. So now you're teaching, okay, well, this is the appropriate screen angle, boom, boom, boom. And now this coach owns that. Well, Coach B over there, he learned shooting. So now he's learned the top 7 reasons on why players are missing shots. And so he's able to help each player choose one so that they can improve that, choose the next so that they can improve that, and constantly grow. And Coach C is over there going, okay, well, I wanted to learn ATOs. That's after timeouts. So what I wanted to do was all I wanted to do was learn about, okay, well, what kind of defenses are the best teams doing after a timeout? What kind of offenses are the best teams doing? And so all 3 of these guys are able to bring their best. And then now in the fall, they're coaching it, they're leading it, they're helping serve. So same thing in the business world. What does my team need to be able to do to reach mission success? And then how can I help them, groom them, move them, put them in places and pieces and respond in a way that helps move them and us to the success.
That's phenomenal. By the way, I listened to Objective Secure that you suggested, by the way, so I know what you're referencing there. By the way, it's Clydesdales, not Chippendales.
Clydesdales and Chippendales. You laughed a little bit. I don't know.
Chippendales are dancers, but
Yeah, that's in Vegas.
I was thinking of my past life.
Oh, that's classic. I don't even know where to go. Pops, you got anything on your side with what he's talking about? I have a couple follow-ups, but I want to give you a chance to like
well,
assigning and
I think,
mastering task.
yeah, I think what you just said about giving them the tools, giving them the ownership, it's all part of being a leader. And we all know there's some folks who don't get leadership. They think just because they have the title, they're entitled, and they think well, this got me there, so I know what I'm doing. But the thing is, everything changes, whether we're talking sports, we're talking business, it's in constant state of change. And there is how it can be from the tools you use, it can be from the kids of what they are dealing with. I mean, look at what we dealt with a few years ago when COVID hit. Nobody knew anything of how to do that. No one expected that to happen. And it caused, a lot of disruption. But I think you do have to spend time, and I think that was something you hit on that to me is in the business world about understanding that you need to give them trust. And I tell my team this all the time. I said, this is and it's not just trust, but it's also what you expect is that, if you're holding the title of a leadership position, then there's a certain responsibility with that. And when you talk about accountability, one of the values that we have in my organization is we don't say I hold others accountable. We say we hold ourselves accountable. And to me, that is when you get your team holding themselves accountable and holding each other accountable, then you can really do something because then they are the ones making sure that they discipline themselves. And it all starts with that ownership piece that you talked about, just like you're just describing that you can have the greatest development plan in the world, but if they're not in it and then you just spring it on them when they should have been working on it, then you've got two things working against you. You got time because they haven't spent the time working on it, and the second thing is you don't necessarily have buy-in. And it's easier for someone to the one thing I always tell a leader, the reason you want to get their feedback and them as part of the process is because if it's just you telling them, then when it fails, they can say, I knew it wasn't going to work, but you told me to do it. You need to be successful. That's my job, is to be a servant leader and take care of you. Now, this is what I expect. But if there's issues with that, you need to let me know so we can work on that as a team. So
Yeah, a
those are
perfect
kind of my thoughts on.
good stuff. I love it. I love it. So, kind of what you're talking about, Jason, I'll just use a personal example here. When you're talking about, hey, you take this, you're going to be leading it. So, I'm I hate to say expert, but I've been running this defense for years now, the point matchup zone.
Mhm.
And he inherently gave me that trust, and I knew I didn't want to let him down, number one. And two, it's a reflection on me because it's my practice now. It's not his practice. He's relinquished in all responsibility and put the responsibility on me to not only put the product on the floor that we want, but also to show the players that we're in this together, that he is here for you. He's here to teach you, because we were both new coaches coming in to the school. And so we had a lot of groundwork to do. And one of the big things running this defense for 5, 6, 7 years now is I always open the floor for questions for the players because it's a very complicated defense. It might be the most complicated defense to run in basketball, especially on the high school level when we're asking these kids to learn a lot of stuff at a young age. And so the patience of it and the ownership of it and, the engagement that he gave me and the freedom to go with it was hugely important. And so and that was pretty much done. That was done at Lake Creek as well. So I've been fortunate enough I learned a very unique defense that two head coaches were all like, "Hey, it's yours. We're going to go into it." And so I could just focus on those things and then ultimately, become a master of that craft and then continue to expand. So when I come into the next season, I have something else in what the kids would call my bag. All right. and be ready to be an expert in something else,
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's
Let's touch on that piece really quick. A great leader recognizes where you're going to be at, and then the level of failure that is almost acceptable. So he's not going to give you your ability to run the entire practice on the day, let's say the day before a game, if he doesn't already know that you have the ability to
mhm.
to effectively do that practice. So he's using the beginning. As soon as you guys got together, he found out what your level is and he gave you little pieces. Well, you're going to fail those little pieces. Okay, great. I accept failure, but I accept growth more. So failure, grow, failure, grow. And so he would never throw that at you at the very beginning. And that's what great leaders do. You'll see poor leaders do the opposite. So they're going to give you the hardest task possible, and then you never succeed, and then be like, oh, well, that's why I should have done it. Well, no,
Or they never talk to you in the first place,
or they
or
don't
they never
understand
trust you in the first.
where you're actually at, where your skills and capabilities are at.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to transition into the last piece with this on, and this I'm super interested in this, so I'm interested to see what you're saying is ghost rules.
Man, oh man,
Ooh.
that's
I feel like you're about to pull a book.
Herding Tigers. Todd Henry is my buddy. He introduced this idea to me, and it's actually something that I recognize I do as a parent, and I'm a shitty parent because of that. And it's one of those things that when your kid
Shots fired.
when your kid does this, when your employee does this, and it bothers you, and you can't believe they did this, but no standard had ever been created. No expectation had ever been created, and you're going to get angry with them. That's my own personal ghost rule. I never told him how to do it, what the expectation was, never figured out if he could actually do that. I said, hey, go do this. And then now I get mad. And it's one of those things,
Mm.
same things as what a lot of businesses do when they do a year in review. You didn't tell me that I messed up on month number 2. You let that live for 10 extra months before you tell me? Ghost rule. So it's one of those things of where are my ghost rules? I have to understand where they actually are. So when things happen and you get upset with an employee or a teammate or a spouse or a kid, like look back and go, okay, did I clearly communicate this? Do they understand what my expectation, what the standard is of what we're doing? It's going to come back to that communication piece, right? I think every team, business or sports, needs a definition of everything. So they need a dictionary. We actually help teams build a dictionary. If these words are not said by you, they should never be said. Don't say them. When a parent says, follow your shot, Tommy, in the middle of a game, you go to Susie and you say, Miss Johnson, please go back to our dictionary and say the words that are in our dictionary. Use those. Don't use words that are not in there. And that just clarifies so much stuff. And so ghost rules help only if we can understand where our actual ghost rules are.
Yeah, no, I'm to your point. One of the things I teach is about having the accountability conversation, and which is a lot of leaders struggle with that, especially new leaders. How do I hold this person accountable and not destroy the relationship in the process? But the first step is, did they understand the expectation? Because if they didn't know the expectation, didn't understand it, then you have to go back and clarify that and get that straight before you can hold anybody accountable, because you can't hold anybody accountable for an expectation that was not known or was not clarified.
How
Most important.
how many Navy Chiefs need to hear that, Dad?
Well, yeah, I know. I learned a lot about it. So
So,
there, but
but
that's why I
so
was old school.
yeah, well, old school doesn't work anymore, apparently, according to. Never mind. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a whole nother
so
show.
So example, I have an example. This is the first time a program that I've been a part of has ever done this. Is we generally, and Jason, I'm sure you did this as well. you have meetings after the season. What'd you think of the season? Where do you think you need to improve? Here's where I see you need to improve. This is what I'm seeing based on your current skill level and trajectory for your role for next season, things of those nature, or things of that nature, I should say. So for the first time in a program this year with Coach Mason, and I'm going to give a shout out because I haven't been shy about saying this. He's been probably the best head coach I've worked for. It's been amazing. So shout out Coach Mason. But we had meetings before the season, not only with the players, but with their parents, and told them where we see them, what their role is right now, asked them what their parents and their goals were for the season and beyond. And so it really identified and eliminated a lot of issues beforehand. And it took out all the mystery or all the ghost when it came from our perspective, and like, why isn't my kid playing, or they don't like my kid, or so it it really helped a lot of situations. So I kind of wish I would have did that with my JV kids. I think it would have eliminated a lot of issues there. But so if there's any coaches listening to this, I 100% think that's one thing you can do to kind of let the ghost out of the closet or wherever they're hiding, and just one way to avoid some things of, oh, I mean, that kid's not very good. You knew he wasn't going to play all year.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, your kid sucks. Well, you never really had a conversation with mom, dad, and the kid of, hey, this is where your role is. And, if you keep working in practice, there may be an injury here or there. Your minutes may get up there, but on a game to game basis, it's going to be tough for you to get in there.
Yeah.
And when that expectation is set, as y'all are saying, you avoid a lot of headaches in the long run. So you lay the groundwork early with your employees, with your players, with your coaches, and you avoid a lot of issues later. And I've seen a lot of coaches have issues with players and parents because they didn't lay any groundwork in the beginning. They just kind of expect them to know, hey, this is what you're going to do. This is where you're going to be at. That kid's the star. We just know he is, and ultimately it leads to headaches, and I think if you do that, Stratford is a unique school. I'm going to be honest. A lot of programs, parents can be a little crazy, but we had no parent issues on the varsity level. We didn't have one parent meeting after our initial meetings.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rarity
Yeah.
in high school basketball nowadays. I got fortunate last year at Caldwell. None of my parents asked to have a meeting with me, but at Lake Creek, we had parent meetings all the time. And so I think that if you have those early groundwork sessions, I think it really, really allows you to grow as a team and lets that player understand and accept his role. And if they're a non-senior, I think it allows them to take the challenge of growing out of that role.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the All-American, the person who's going to retire your jersey, like to retire their jersey in the rafters, it's going to be the next Jayson Tatum. Bam. He's right there. What does that look like in every area that's associated with our program? The training room. What does being that level of a player look like in the training room? What does being that level of a player look like in the classroom? What does being that level look like in the community, in the weight room, on the court with your teammates? So you have we have about 24 different things that you could actually dive into. And you go, what is that level? Well, then what's the starter look like? What's the kid who makes the team but then just doesn't, does enough to get their jersey? Then you've got the kid who's forgotten, the kid who was on the team, but then, dude, I don't remember his name 10 years later. What was Eric? I think it was Eric. I don't know. And then it's gone. So the last one is, what characteristics does somebody who is gone, what do they have? So you have all these different areas of what are the standards of excellence and what that looks like. So then you have no issue. So you give this to our parents. These are our standards. I think clearly communicating like you did with parents is going to set the tone for everything. Constantly communicating. You don't ever have a meeting with a parent without the kid there. So then the kid understands, like the kid knows where he's at. I don't care. 99% of all kids know exactly where they're at on the roster sheet. 99% of business people know exactly where they're at based on the numbers that they provide, based on their efforts, not on the crap that people feed inside of them. At the water cooler, there's Sally is over there telling me I'm the greatest salesman since sliced bread, and she's never seen me close a sale. Tommy's over there telling me I'm the greatest shooter he's ever seen. Well, that's great and all. So I'm listening to them, and it's impacting what's going on. So we have to be careful with who we're listening to, but just understanding of, okay, well, what is the standard? What do I need to do? How can I best do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Most definitely.
This has been a phenomenal subject. I really hope a lot of good stuff in there. I really hope a lot of people listen to this all the way through, because I think if there's coaches out there, man, they just got a lot of free advice. And you want to talk about your program that folks like coaches like me could sign up for on your website?
Yeah, man, it's coachjfry.com and backslash, a healthy leader is on there. We are just focused on helping serve all these different people. If it's about the kids, then it's got to be about you. If it's about being a parent, it's got to be about you. Everything just comes back to your health and your representation of who you are and who you want to be, and just those steps of trying to get there. It's nonstop. We try to take you through a journey where, we understand that you're going to get off track. Every weight loss program says, hey, you'll never get off track if you just follow it and follow it, follow it. Well, that's just not applicable, because you're going to fall off track. You're going to screw up. And so we want to be there and to still walk you up that journey. Okay, well, how do you get back on the highway? Well, I take right, I go left, I might go backwards, and then I got to get back on the on ramp. Okay, so that's how life goes, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help improve people so they have a better life with their kids, more energy, just better able to serve and do the things that they actually want to do.
Yeah, I think what I mean, I've you talk about the healthy lifestyle and falling off track. This in July we're going to be eating Elkhorn pizza. So, but I let the folks look that place up themselves. But it's delish. It's delicious. I hope we get to do steak night this year, but we didn't get that last year. But the healthy lifestyle. I mean, I've kind of joked about this for years. Is the coach's 15? It's like the freshman 15 in college. During the season, I'm probably putting on 10 to 15 pounds. And then after the season, I finally get back in the gym, and it takes me 6, 7 months to get that weight off. And then when the season comes around, I don't have the time, it feels like, right,
Yeah.
to get to the gym. Keyword feels. And so, there's a balancing act there that I think a lot of coaches need help with and guidance, because it's always a positive thing. And I'm sure there's folks in the business world who get wrapped up in their numbers and their production and, what they can do the best at, because they want that promotion or they want to make more money or whatever it is. Making six figures is great, but if you're unhealthy and you're unhappy, it really doesn't matter.
Correct.
And so I really hope some folks, go to Coach Fry,
CoachJFry.com.
CoachJFry.com. I even have it written down here, and I still got it wrong. I suck.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
But at that very moment I did, but in life I don't. But yeah, I hope some folks look into that. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up. I'm not going to get into some other thought. We're going to have to bring you in for a second session for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's end with that one good question, and that is, who is gonna win in the NBA Finals?
All right, so Dad, we're going to give us our predictions. All right, I'm gonna give you the finals, the amount of games, and you're going to be the tiebreaker or whoever gets it. So, Dad, do you remember who you had in the finals?
It was Boston and
Denver.
And the Nuggets, right?
Yeah, Denver.
Yes.
He said Denver. No, you said the Celtics in 7, right?
Yes. Celtics in 7.
He said Celtics in 7. We had very different brackets. I'm going to be honest with you, Jason. But actually, it was really bad in the hockey bracket. But in the basketball bracket, we both did have the Nuggets and Celtics in the final. I also picked the Celtics in 6. So your thoughts, who you got, who you think's going to be in the final, who you think's going to win the NBA championship?
I just want to say that I don't care who comes out of the West because it's going to be the Celtics in 5. And let's call it
in 5.
In 5, yes, sir.
You think they're going to dominate?
I don't think they're messing around this year.
In fact, you got your faith in.
Well, there you go.
They're not messing around this year.
You got some insider information that could boost our subscribers right now? Like, what's going on here?
No, sir. I know nothing of any sort that would construe as gambling. But I'm taking the Celtics in 5.
I can respect it. So we all have the Celtics. We just have different predictions.
I would not want to go. I would not want to go with Denver or go 7 with Denver. I think that scares me from a Celtics point.
You think if it's not early, you think they could end up losing the series? Is what you're saying?
I think it's Denver's dangerous, man. They are
100%.
beyond.
They are.
But I really do think that the mindset of the Celtics this year, everything that they're doing, how they're acting, how their chemistry is, what their culture is, how they listen to their coach, how they listen to their coaching staff, like it's all playing into a very special year.
It sounds like
I would agree.
They have healthy leadership.
They do. They really do.
So, and they honor our families of fallen soldiers, sailors, and Marines, and Camp Hope here locally, dealing with the mental health of our veterans, and Deblin Health, my dad's company, sitting over there. He's going to give a shout out to his team. Ready, set, and go.
Deblin Health Concept. Shout out to my team helping with mental health in the community. And we got a conference this week talking about the very thing, adolescents, nurturing mental health and adolescence at the Hyatt Regency Intercontinental on Thursday.
And their star speaker is me. Actually, I'm just one of them. But and go visit Coach Fry.com for
you wrote it down.
I know. I'm telling you.
Wrote it down.
I wrote it down twice, actually. Go check him out. He is big time. This man knows more about basketball than I ever will. I am humbled in his presence. I love when we're in Colorado talking basketball because you always make me feel like I'm a rookie, and that's always refreshing. We always need to be humbled. We love y'all. Peace. We're out.